Good morning, everybody. As you heard, I'm Wendy Byron, I'm the Treasurer. But I also have been coordinating some projects in Towns County with a wonderful team of people who include Robert Collins, who's from Cherry Log, actually. So he would drive over and help us. Leslie McConaughey, Krista Hamill, Vicky Suarez, Elaine Jackson, Andrea Brennan, Greg and myself, Larry Duncan. Where'd Larry go? He was here a second ago. And a friend of ours, Kay Albert. So this team, we undertook two major projects. One was at Towns County Courthouse. Oh, there's Larry. Hey. Towns County Courthouse that they had just recently rebuilt, refurbished, made a mess, whatever. And supposedly they put in landscaping. Not so much. I went to the county commissioner early last year and said, hey, what if the Georgia Native Plant Society came in and fixed some of your garden beds? He said, we don't have any money. I said, we do. So we set about planning. Now, it's horrible dirt, as you can imagine. They did construction. So there were rocks, rebar, all sorts of stuff in there that Larry and Robert and Greg pulled out. So the first time we went in, we actually tilled. Yes, we know that's typically a no-no for native plants, but when you were dealing with what we had, it was the only option. We had to sort of find some dirt. We also amended Hamilton Gardens. Catherine Lukenbach actually gave me some amendment for free to put in there, so we put that in at the same time. And then we went away and we came back the following week or thereafter, something, and we planted in this project. So you can see we did this bed here, and then there's another one that's identical over there. And then we did a bit of this one. Up here, you can see that they have some plants that we don't like. My plan is, no, I can't say that. I'll tell you later when I'm not on video. There is some coastal dog hobble back in there, sort of behind Greg, the reddish kind of. It's coastal dog hobble, which is exactly what we were talking about. You shouldn't have coastal dog hobble, you should have mountain dog hobble. Anyway, so we went in, we planted about 250 plants, I think, in this one, between all the beds. And then we went back a week or two later. We got Greg organised a truckload of mulch from the EMC that was fresh off the press, and they came in and dumped it, and our crew went to work again, putting all the mulch down. And our plan is that will break down and help this horrible earth, if that's what you can call it. So you can see the boys all hard at work there. And here is the key thing. We have signage on both beds, both main beds, with a QR code. So people can take a look. Of course, it's not much to see now. It's all sleeping in the spring. Can't wait. People will be able to walk by, go, oh my goodness, what is that? And QR code it and find out all about Georgia native plants. I saw the commissioner at an event just before Christmas, and I said, how's your garden growing? And he said, it looks great, even though it's not doing much. Here you go. Here's all the plants. We actually purchased plants because we needed so many, so much. And because it's the county courthouse, my focus was to make this look grand. Because A, we've got to get people interested in native plants, see the wide range of native plants that we can use up here. And so Doug Tallamy has, there's an offshoot called My Home Park, where you can go in and choose the natives for your area, and you can actually choose actual garden plans. And that's what we did. So That's when they all arrived in lots and lots of boxes at my house. So I think this is where we were mulching, isn't it, Greg? Oh, that's planting, okay. So you can see everyone's hard at work. It was a great team. And believe it or not, each session only took about 2 hours. So next time when I say I need volunteers, it's not an all-day event. It was about 2 hours, right, Larry? Yeah, each time we did a segment, like the digging and then the planting and then the mulching. Yeah. The planting day we actually did here, and then we went down to Hamilton Gardens. Yeah, I'll talk about that in a second. But we had some left over, so a few of us quickly came back and stuck them in here as well. Oh, Taryn was there too. Sorry, Taryn. Okay, so then Hamilton Gardens. Is everyone familiar with Hamilton Gardens at Georgia Mountain Fairground? Yes? I worked with Catherine Lukenbach and with Hilda, and they gave us 2 beds. They're very excited. Catherine's ecstatic. So when you walk in the front gate of the Hamilton, you can either go to the right or to the left. So everyone's going to see one of them. So if you go, what do we got here? This is to the left, I think. The one with the rock, yes. To the left. If you go down just a little ways, there's like a corner piece. They moved the rock and took out, there was some non-native thing in there that, yeah, they took out. Oh, there was a dogwood stump, that's right, over here. Anyway, they took it out and they dug it all up and added some stuff, so it actually saved us hard work. We really like this one. And it's real dirt. So we planted this. There you go. You can see Leslie, and that's Andrea, Larry, I think that's Krista, right? Yep. All planting hard. And then the boys had water fights. Well, not really. So it was a lot of fun, I think. Yeah. And we worked great as a team. And we had the use of a golf cart for this one, which was wonderful. Okay. So then we went down to the right, you know, where the what is it, like Chihuly kind of glass, but it's not. There's a display down if you go down the right way. And on that corner, they gave us a bed, right? Is that it? No, that's not it. Oh, you don't have that one. Okay. So, yeah, if you go left, you're going to find one, go right. And Catherine is going to do actual signs for each plant, you know, like proper plant signs. She's doing them through the winter that will go in there so that people can see, and they will also have our signs with the QR code. Just going back real quick to the courthouse. If anyone's familiar with the courthouse, you're looking at the front of it. Over on the left, you have the library and you have the historic jail. There's an alley between it. And the gentleman from the Historic Society cornered me. And he would like us to take on doing that bed, which gets next to no sun, has water runoff because there's no gutters. And once again, joy, 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 it's full of rock. So we may look at that in the coming year to see what to do. Back to Hamilton Gardens, we also have been given, sorry, you had a question? Yeah, it's over here between, this is the historic jail, so it's right down the side of there. I do have pictures on my phone, which is currently the camera, but yeah, it'll be fun. Because of Hamilton Gardens, the fairgrounds have also given us, if you're familiar with the Pioneer Village, within the fairgrounds, there is a mountain home cabin is a main part of that. It used to have, what do you call it? Can't think. It used to have vegetable garden, heirloom vegetable gardens, and all sorts of other plantings around it. Well, through circumstances and over time, yeah, they're not really there anymore. So they would love us to go in and do, and I've talked with Catherine, do it piece by piece, because to undertake the whole thing would be insane. But if anyone is familiar with the amount of people that go into the fairgrounds throughout the year, the exposure will be massive. And that will get people who don't ordinarily go to, say, Hamilton Gardens, who aren't typical gardeny people. We'll get a lot more people looking and going, oh my goodness, look at that. We could do that. So that's the plan, but that is a long-term plan. I think that's about it. So please, if you're in Towns County at any time in the spring, go look at our work. And we're continuing to maintain it. We keep an eye on it. You see these things? I have a feeling the drought may have hurt them.
Supervises the Ethnobotanical Gardens at GMREC, including orienting volunteers. So anybody who's a master gardener probably has put in some time there, as you know, for their volunteer hours and stuff, and he's a part of the coordinating that. Okay, and your title is The Gardens, Which Plants for Which Environments and Sources for the Plants. And have you all received the handout that he had? Okay, nobody is missing that. Okay.
Hold your applause. Hold your applause.
Okay, you have.
So go ahead and write down Glen, Henderson. I'm the able tinker. I don't know why I didn't put it in the handout. ABLETINKER. I'm retired. All I do is tinker around, but I'm good at it. Some people think I know a lot of stuff. Not really, but I know where to look it up. And so I became the manager of the Ethnobotanic Garden at the experiment station. It's 5 acres. It's a combination of native plants and old naturalized plants like dandelion was intentionally brought in. I don't want to badmouth the British, but they were just first. And you know, they brought it in as a spring salad. They ate it on the island. They wanted to make sure they had it here. They got here, they didn't have their favorite weeds to eat. They sent back for more weeds. Sheep are the worst thing about spreading weeds. It gets in their woolly little coats. And so when they started bringing over livestock, they were bringing over plants from the island, and then everybody else got involved too. But whatever they brought over, brought stuff with them. But at the experiment station, everything is supposed to have a use. So we expanded the definition of ethnobotanical to cover landscaping, what you can do in your yard to help your psyche. You know, if you're gonna plant something, you want it to look kind of nice around your house. So I push naturalized looking landscaping. You ladies, get your husbands off their lawn mowers. You know, I mean, it's hard, but you know, if you got a corner over here, 10, 20 square feet, it's just hard to mow, or you don't care about it, let it go native. And so my handout has sources and pages of what goes in what kind of environment: shade, sun, near the water, damp roots. At the experiment station, we demonstrate 6 microclimates. A bold stream, water runs all year long. A sunny hillside just bakes whatever's growing on it. A shady hillside right next to the sunny hillside. We have a plot called the pollinator garden, which really is just a bunch of plants we put in, and ironically, they attract more bee-type critters than right next door to them. So the bees prefer our St. John's wort, our salvia, and whatever else we have in that plot. To figure out where I'm at here, a bog. We built the bog, but it's a bog has to have moving water under an organic layer that the plants grow in. The upper edge of a beaver dam would be a bog. Well, we fixed that. We got rid of all our beavers. And the bog turtle doesn't have any place to live anymore. So, but if you happen to have a spot that you don't mind being a little super damp, you could create a bog, or a child swimming pool can be turned into a bog real cheaply. So a lot of tricks. We have an intermittent stream, an ephemeral stream that dries up in the late summer. So it has a different plant culture. It's in the shade. We have damp forest where the springhead comes out and just leaks through the dirt. And we've turned that into a terrarium just by enhancing it and keeping the dirt from washing in and whatnot. And then we have a trail that goes from that damp forest uphill and across and turns into dry ridge. That's what most of the real estate around here is. It may have trees and whatnot, but there's no groundwater percolating at that point. And so whatever your yard is, we can help you identify plants and sources of them, the ones we use. So this is a paid political announcement. Sign up. We need volunteers, but everybody thinks that volunteering is going to be weed pulling. Yeah, we got to do a lot of that. All these wild plants used to be weeds, and now they're organized, so it's a garden. So, but we need tour guides. They say, well, I can't, or I don't want to, or I'm only up here part-time. I don't know if I can, work in the garden. Our tour guides, you want to learn about this stuff. I got my books here. These are my personal books. Don't be stealing them on me. I'm going to pass them out in the order that I think they're useful. I'm just a beginner. This is my book. Now, every little golden tab is a plant that I have in my yard. My yard's 172 acres of forest, and three different, a bold stream, the dry ridge, a meadow, but family land that we've had for years and years. So, but I mean, when you start looking at the gold tabs, you would be surprised what you have on the edges of your yard, down by the mailbox with the county road. That the only thing they do is weed spray and mow. And if you can get them to stop doing that, and then you can plant some stuff. So just pass them on down around and stack them up at the end. But that's book number one. So we're talking about plants and landscaping. I got to know what's a weed and what's a plant. What do I want? You come work at the garden or a master garden or your own education over the years, how to transplant. A lot of times we take a plant out of good hard red clay and we get some potting soil and we move it to the shady area where we want to look at it, and we plant it, and it dies because it likes hard red clay. And this is where, oh darn science, I hate learning about that part. But you've got to keep the native plants in the environment that they have accustomed themselves to over the years. There was some discussion about what plants should we put in here. The irony of this location, we have one of the most diverse biocultures in the world. We're the north end of the southern plants, the southern end of the northern plants, and then all these mountains that are called balds have a dwarf stunted plant growth that's found in Newfoundland. They may be the same kind of plant that's here, but it's stunted, it's modified, its DNA characteristics over the years. But during the continental ice age, that cold weather affected the tops of these mountains. Well, that non-existent global warming is adjusting the balds now. Stuff is dying up there, you know. And pick your reason for global warming. That really is immaterial. The fact is, the hot temperatures are affecting our cold weather plants. So, that's not a political comment. It's just a fact of life. So, then we've got the prepper folks out there, and they want to be able to survive when Ingalls goes out of business. Well, we've seen it. Just a couple months ago, the ATMs were running out of money, and the bank wasn't working, and so all of a sudden we couldn't get gas, we couldn't get groceries, and Ingalls was down electronically. Luckily, it only lasted a couple of days. We're back up and running. But who knows what can happen in the future. The weather today is weird. We have not had thunder snow, which Northerners know all about that, since 1993. March 13, 1993, we got a blizzard down here, 3 feet of snow overnight, high winds, and my road was out of electricity for 11 days. The hospital was back up and running in 24 hours. So your priority. Well, if you're living at the end of the road, even if it's a subdivision at the end of the road, and EMC's got their one line that comes into your area, you don't know how long you'll be out. So, thinking on those lines, and you're landscaping your garden, you say, well, I got heart problems and I'm on medication. Well, what did the Indians do for that? So you got to figure out what, quote, native plants might help you with that. Now, I flunked Latin, and the Latin instructor asked me not to, she'd give me a D- if I wouldn't come back, and I'll take it. But the common names change by location and what your grandma called that plant. So when you say, you got Mayflower down here? I don't know. We got to look it up. And then I can look it up Mayflower in the book and look at the scientific name, and then find out if we have that plant here. Yes, we do. And it's a common northern wild plant. But the so I don't try to remember stuff. I just try to remember where to look it up and how to look it up. So that starts putting our thought process from gardening into the use of those plants. And that's what really piqued my interest and how I got to be in charge of the big gardens. So that's things like I used to hike, and I hate the South because they got vines. Every place you go, there's vines, and they trip you up. And the most hated vine is catbrier. Well, it can get a stem as big as your finger and 10 feet long, big, beautiful green leaves on it. Those green leaves are the highest source of protein in the forest. It's the first fall food that the deer eat. And then the leaves are gone, and you don't see the vine until it's got you. Nasty thorns. Well, underneath one that's got a stem the size of a yellow pencil is a peck of potatoes. And I don't rip them out by the root. I might prune it, because I walk here a lot. But I don't kill that plant. And they will grow in the dark shade. So, just picking up on a few things like that this might come in handy, but it's a unique thing, and the neighbor's dog won't come through it. So, so anyhow, here we got this garden, and we're starting to get food in it, and all of a sudden we need to know how to cook it. Now, my funnest book is this one here called Roadside Rambles. You know, there is a cookbook for roadkill, and and this moves over to the side of the road where the weeds are growing. And but it's recipes that you might use. And this book, the Wild Food Cookbook, kind of self-explanatory, but it's got good pictures and tasty recipes. I do work with my wife to say occasionally we ought to just do this so we can say we understand. Well, then, you know, with our heart problem, how many like foxgloves? The scientific name of foxglove is digitalis. You know, heart medicine. Now, there's a fine line between medicine and poison, you know, and sometimes you want that stuff to kill whoever you're giving it to, and not your husband, but the, you know, it's that fine line. There used to be a world famous holistic veterinarian here in Blairsville. She retired 10 years ago and moved back home to California. But Mary Brennan was super duper, great personality, highly knowledgeable. On 24-hour call to the Prince of Dubai for his racehorse herd. He would send a charter jet to pick her up here, fly her to Atlanta, get on his airplane with the gold faucets, and fly to Dubai. She was at every major race in America and Canada. Whoever would pay her the most money is the barn she went with. And I said, Mary, it's like witchcraft to me. Said, yeah, but now we know what is a dosage of mushroom. You know, get from that borderline of medicine to poison. With modern chemistry, they can figure out what the dosage should be. So this whole stack over here is herbal and medicinal, and you know, but there's that crossover. You know, technically everything we eat should be good for us. Processed foods is not always that way, but you know, so there's that line. So we've moved from just planting a garden of native plants to going down to cooking and eating it, and then actually preserving it and having it ready for medicinal uses. And at the experiment station, every year we have to try to have a class, and we shoot for the first Friday of June, but this year it's the second Friday, the 12th of June, and it's pharmaceutical use of native plants, based on mostly Cherokee. It's a white man that does it, but he has lived and studied with the Cherokee. Mark Warren has a school on survivability as a Cherokee, and a really knowledgeable fellow. So mark your calendars for 12 June, 10 o'clock at the experiment station, and come up and see. And then after that tour, we go down to the gardens. After the presentation, we go down to the gardens and give guided tours, and you start getting familiarized. The gardens are open every Monday, May to end of September, and we have tour guides there and workers. You can go any day of the week when the experiment station is open. So we've designed the gardens a lot like what you folks are doing, little signs and self-guided tours. But I say, come on down on the 12th of June, get familiarized with it. Bring your friends back as they come up on Wednesday, and show them around, and you'll get more mentally sharp about what's out there, the blooming times. This nasty weather is 3 weeks early, which you would think isn't a bad problem, except with the warm weather before Christmas, the warm weather after Christmas, the warm weather now. We're still going to have 2 more periods of warm weather. The crazy plants think it's springtime. And they're going to come out, and sure as the dickens, we'll have a late frost. 2 or 3 days, 20 or colder. I'm just hoping for 2 or 3 days. It could snap down for a week to 10 days. Not uncommon, no snow. Another unique thing around here, very seldom does the dirt freeze. You know, if it's totally bare dirt out there at 20 degrees overnight, you might get a crust on it. But you bust that crust and go down a foot where the roots are going to be, and it's not frozen. So again, these are adjustments that the plants have made, and we just have to stay within their boundaries. Yeah. You can see, you know, some of these books have got tags in them. I've got to find that. I've got to do that. I've got to practice that. So let me see. Y'all can, if you got questions, raise your hand. I can ramble for hours. This is about a 4-day presentation. We're down special tours. Every 10 days, the plants are changing. Now, that's at the experiment station. That's at city level here, lake level, which is plus or minus 2,000 feet. I think full pool on Lake Notley is 1,900 feet above sea level. I live at 2,200. The top of the hill right behind me is 2,750. And that's 30 days. From 22 to 2,750 is 30 days difference in the blooming time, and I can watch my plants move up the hill. I'm also a beekeeper, president of a local bee club. Yeah, a busybody.
Honeybees.
Huh?
Honeybees?
Yeah, honeybees. But, you know, there's talk. Honeybees are important. What can I do to preserve honeybees? Help them out. Well, our plants, our native plants, the bees love pretty much above anything we get at Walmart. One example is at the experiment station, we have scarlet salvia. Grows about this tall. It, you know, looks like salvia, but it's raggedy. The blossom is this long, you know, cluster of bells, and they're spaced out. And, you know, I don't want that. No, when you're doing with natives, you got to get 10 plants and get them close together so that even the leaf structure, you've clustered it. And every time they modify, everything you buy at Walmart, Home Depot, a fancy, expensive nursery used to be a weed somewhere. And as they improve those cultivars, better smell, different colors, longer blooming season, you lose something. Insect resistance, drought resistance, you know, the things that are really important is usually what you lose when you improve a plant. So, you know, I stress, you know, if you can do it, and I don't have a heartache mixing some nursery plants with your natives, just keep them. Those are natives. This is a nursery plant, tall, strong, wind resistant. You know, it's going to protect these more delicate natives. You know, there's reasons for using nursery plants. But so now I've got you all recruited, and you're coming to the experiment station. Well, I really, you know, I like doing this, but, you know, what's the benefit to me? I pay in culls. I'm working with weeds. We got to cull them so they look organized in the gardens. I hate to throw them on the compost pile. And every Monday, we try to have whatever we're working on available to hand out to the tourists. You could do that easy with no commitment, or to the workers for sure. Workers get first pick. And, you know, on our list, it's just amazing. Some things I refuse to throw away. like the hemlock trees. You know, I've got a great hemlock patch over there. My main project for this coming year is a lady, Holly Campbell, at the Warnell Forestry School, University of Georgia, was my presenter this past summer, and she was complaining she wanted to put in a forage orchard, sturdy shrubs, more sturdy than blackberries, bushes, trees that produce an edible product. And she said, forestry school won't give me any real estate. She wanted 2 acres. Wouldn't give her any real estate. Oconee County, Athens would not give her any real estate. The city of Athens wouldn't give her any real estate. I got real estate. I said, do you have a budget? You got to buy these bushes and trees. And she, yep, she has a little budget. I've got a little budget. We're going to make it happen. And we've got our plot picked out. She has to do scientific research, soil samples and whatnot, you know, for the university. But that's our big project this year. My next project I'm working on is the red spruce tree. There is a spot, and literally a spot, on the North Carolina border, way up in the hills, about 4,000 feet elevation, and it's the last known colony of red fir. And so I went, wait a minute, why? Why is that? Well, first thought was it wants the cool air, maybe a little snow, possibly, might help it. But what caused it to disappear from the greater Appalachian chain of mountains? It's not found in Maine, maybe too cold. I can't believe that on a fir tree. But so anyhow, I'm getting with those folks over by Brevard, and we're going to put in a test patch here. I hope on top of Brasstown Bald, and at other places. You see Mickey Cummins always writing about his hiking tours in the paper, and he's willing, him and his buddies, they'll take them out and plant them. The only requirement these people want is a good GPS location for that 3 or 4 trees that they plant, so that somebody can come back and look at them and see if they're still making it. But my question to the people in charge was, did the climate restrictions change the location of that tree, or was it the massive forestry operation that went through here 1880 to 1920? By 1920, there was not a tree to the top of any hill around here. Brasstown Bald, yes, but there wasn't any big trees to cut down. The technique was, and I suppose it was because iron was too expensive, the Murphy train line was put in by Vanderbilt. He came down here and built the Biltmore House purely as a logging operation. Got 88,000 acres from the government, created the town of Waynesboro and Silva. They were just little post offices, but that's where he put his mills in, and ran the railroad up here and other places to haul logs downhill. So from Murphy to Blairsville, they put in a narrow gauge railroad. Cute little steam engine, 2 or 3 cars, and 10 miles of track. They would pick the track up behind the train and put it down in front of the train. You know, so it had to be a cost of railroad rails. And they'd come to a mountain, they'd lay the track around the mountain, run the little engine up there, cut them down, bring the logs to the bottom of the mountain, put them on horse-drawn log carts. That's a special vehicle, really interesting to look at, wheels about that tall, and take the logs to Murphy, put them on the train, and send them to the mill. Slow. But they call it slash. All the branches that you cut off of that log just left laying. And dead trees and all sorts of things just left out there. And the sparks from that steam engine would catch them on fire. And they burned more forest than they harvested. They got plenty of forest, no problem. So, it's all, you go in like in my hill, I've got trees this big around. I've got chestnut stumps this big around. And, that was all pre-1910-ish. I've got a log cabin that's 90% chestnut logs from 1920. And it, it just, the way it was, we didn't think about this stuff. But now we can come back, and with that little 20 square feet that you've got in the corner of your yard in a partially filled subdivision, all the lots haven't been sold, all the houses have not been constructed. You can plant natives and become a seed source for hundreds of acres, especially if you live up against the Forest Service where it's not going to be disturbed. Now, I'm not political, facts of life. The Forest Service operates on a 10-year plan. Okay, that's what we're going to do for 10 years. Well, once it's approved, we're not going to vary anything. We're just chugging along. They got to have public hearings. We're getting ready to have the public hearings around here. Haven't seen it in the paper, but they're just finishing the plan down in Gainesville. And they'll come around and ask you. I was in the last cycle in this room, and all the people dressed like us, kind of clean, they're up here in the front. Can't be cutting down all those trees. And in the back, they're leaning against the walls. Bib overalls, dirty, got their lace-up boots covered with mud. It's the loggers. And they just come out of the forest to hear what was being said. The presenter, he could see them, and he knew they're worried about their livelihood. At the rate that we are logging this region right now, the loggers will not come back to a spot that was logged last year for 180 years. The forests are too mature. Forest fire is a real big danger around here. And I'm going, a seed source in your neighborhood, you can do a whole lot more good than you imagine. So that, any questions yet? I've covered from way over here to way over here. And we have a real good research library at our little meeting building, the cannery, at the experiment station. We don't loan them out because we used to never get our books back. But it's a good place to come, see, research. We cover mosses, well, I like what you've done with that moss. Okay, let me give you enough to go home and plant. We had Moss and Annie come over one year and talk to us about just most of the myths about moss are wrong. You can abuse it. It's easy to plant. You don't have to water it with buttermilk. You do have to keep it damp. But, we've got 11 varieties of moss over there. And to take a little bit at the base of this tree or off that rock wall or something does not hurt our demonstration one bit. And so I encourage you to come, visit, ask questions, bring your friends. We do. I don't know if you catch, but every August there's now it's called the Southeast Pollinator Census. Started in Georgia by a government university lady who works up at her office. She does not work for the experiment station. She just conned the university of putting her office up here. And she lives between here and Blue Ridge. Grew up in that area. Becky Griffin. And but she has to service. If you want to put a pollinator garden in your community, she's the official advisor. If you ask her, she does schools. in public gardens and all over Georgia. And she knows where to get the plants, which are working here in the sandy coastal area. Or if you can visualize, we're at the top of the mountain, Wallacea, Brasstown Bald. And so when you come off the mountains from here, there's a domed dirt deposit 150 miles. You get past Interstate 20, it starts turning into the sandy coastal plain. But you go from the mountains to the Piedmonts, which were created by erosion off of the mountains, a lot of clay, different mineral content. And then when you hit the sandy coastal plain, which they're calling that coastal, but the sandy pine plantations, where the wind blows and the pecan trees fall over because they're just in pure sand. But as that mineral content changes, the plants modify themselves. Some won't make it, some will. That's why we're talking about don't bring in your favorites from Florida. They're either on a limestone knob or a sandy deposit, usually of calcium-rich seashells, not dirt sand, but sandy, crushed-up seashells. So, in your landscape, and if you want one that your grandma grew and down there, and you really, really want it, you just have to get you a bunch of seashells and grind them up and mix them with the dirt so that dissolving calcium keeps that plant happy. And then put it over here and just put a sign up in memorial of, not do your whole darn yard in it. Dog hobble. I've got one of the most beautiful dog hobbles I've ever seen over at the experiment station. And it blooms and the seeds fall on the ground and wash away. And, so, yeah, right. It's local. And, but that's the thing. I think in your handout, I think I gave you all of the stuff that we don't necessarily have every one of those plants. We have like 430 with signs on them, but we have a lot of stuff we just know is there, and then we're constantly buying new. We had to cut down a bunch of big pine trees because they were reaching their maturity and just falling over, and for safety reasons, they logged them out. They did a fabulous logging job, and they tore the hillside up. And if they didn't cut that tree down, they wounded it really badly, hitting it with their bulldozers or whatever. I mean, I've never seen a mess like they created. But we are approaching that. This is tornado or forest fire damage. Serious 100% destruction. We've cleaned it up somewhat, and we want it to regenerate somewhat naturally. So we'd bring in 2 or 3 trees, a subspecies of oak that we don't have. It should be here, and we'll plant it. Just slowly bringing it back. And I'm using William Bartram's 1774 analysis of his walk through this area. He didn't come here, but he did go through Valhalla, Highlands, Franklin. He gets confused in his writings around. He describes the Nantahala Gorge really well, but then talks about turning left, went up to this bald, followed that creek. That may be the extent of his walk before he went back home to Pennsylvania. But he listed a lot of plants, mostly the bigger plants, big hardy shrubs and stuff like that. But so if he doesn't talk about it, we try to ignore it in this heritage forest that we're rebuilding. And that's where the forage orchard has to fit that description. And it's one thing, we don't see butternuts up here except in the yard. They were in Valhalla, which would be out on the edge of our ecological study zone. And it could be, since this forest was so much more mature than the edge, that today the butternut, if there was enough of them still on the edge, could spread this way. You got to wait for the squirrel to move it 40 feet and bury it. Move it, every year, move them out a little bit. So, that's our guide. Yes, ma'am.